we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Everyday Heroes podcast. I cannot believe that we're in 2025. I don't know about you, but 2024 went by really quickly. And I suspect that 2025 is going to go even faster. So I just wanted to jump on. Obviously, we are going to be talking to a number of different guests this year. And the first one on the ranks is a very dear friend of mine, Isabelle Russel. And she is going to be talking about all things regulation. Now, I don't know about you, maybe you're early on in your journey with autism, or maybe you're a seasoned veteran, but when I started going the autism journey, I had no idea what regulation was. I didn't understand what regulation for my son. I definitely didn't know what regulation meant for me. And how that really impacts everyone around us. And if we're not regulated, it really stops us from being in our truest flow, if you will. We really need to be regulated in order to just, right? How can we expect our children to learn if they're completely dysregulated? How can we be expected to parent when we're dysregulated? So I'm really excited to talk to Isabelle because she is going to share so many amazing tips, tools, and strategies around, what regulation looks like and what her career really has spanned. So Isabelle, welcome.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. So can you just tell us a little bit about Mindful Munchkins and what prompted you to start it, create it, and a little bit about your career so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in education for 12 years now, which just like 2004 has gone so quickly. And I've worked all across the world. So I've worked with children with different languages, in different countries, in different cultures, with different curriculums. And I think my span of experience taught me that emotional dysregulation is actually a silent crisis within our system. And it's really impacting teachers' ability to be able to teach content. It's really affecting parents because they don't know how to manage feelings, behaviors, or emotions. And then children are leaving the education system, without the critical skills to thrive in society. So I really saw a gap in the market and I really wanted to help in that space. And as you mentioned briefly earlier in the introduction, it is so important that children have the foundation of social and emotional skills before we even think about academic learning, because how can we expect them to concentrate and to focus and to learn if they don't feel safe? And if they don't have the ability to be able to problem solve, or all of those juicy things that we called soft skills, which I secretly hate the word soft skills because they're so more than soft and they're so vital to who we are as human beings. So that's why I started Mindful Mushkins, and I really wanted to do it in an accessible way. We use a lot of stories, as you know, and books and activities that make well-being, I think, can seem quite doom and gloom and heavy, and mental health can seem quite a scary concept. And I really wanted to have a fun approach to say, hey, it's not scary, it's not doom and gloom. We can have fun characters and we can have stories, and it's really those simple things, those 1% habits that we can help our children with that make such a huge difference down the line.
Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like there has been this craze around self-care and mental health, a lot around adults, but there's nothing really around children, right? We're so busy looking after ourselves, right? As an adult, I've got to have the bath, I've got to have the glass of wine, I've got to go for my run. And totally, I'm here for it because we do it, right? But what's happening with these tiny humans that are in front of who most certainly need to regulate, and in the instance that your child is autistic, more so, right, where you really need to make sure that they are regulated. So what's your perception of that?
I think you're right. I think having a proactive approach is so important because, as you said, when we get to adults, often as adults, we're unlearning a lot of the things that maybe we've been taught, or how to handle our emotions, or how to deal with challenging situations or conflict. The amount of adults that are in my life that, are so petrified of conflict,
Yeah.
And it's because we weren't taught those skills, and we weren't taught how to understand ourselves, whether we're neurodivergent or not, or
Yeah.
neurotypical.
Yeah.
It's really important that we have a certain level of understanding. And how can we do that? We have to learn about ourselves and that self-awareness, and what regulation strategies work for us, because everybody's different. So I think there's a statistic, I think it's probably even more so now, but 50% of mental health issues actually start before the age of 14, which
Wow.
just goes to show that's why we need to work with the children early and have, those interventions before they start sort of snowballing into something bigger that then obviously we see in adults can be really,
Yeah.
really difficult.
And do you see a large majority of your children that you're seeing in schools or whatnot that are either completely dysregulated or don't know how to regulate themselves?
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. And I think there's so many more influences in today's society that has impacted that statistic, in terms of, COVID and screens and all of these things that sort of are creeping into what normal life looks like. And children just don't know how to handle that. We're in very much a consumerist, consume everything, that we're not actually taking the time to really slow down, focus on ourselves and say, how can I help the child, and how do they know what they need? Because it's so important, I think. And obviously we'll talk about self-regulation strategies, but to co-regulate as well, especially with children, to provide them options to be able to self-regulate later down the line.
Yeah, definitely. I know that in my experience, especially, and one that obviously I can talk to, is that I needed to make sure that I was regulated so that I could regulate my children. In the times that I'm dysregulated, and full transparency here, yesterday was a perfect example, right? We've just gotten back from a long holiday. The house is a mess. We've had to go to the supermarket to buy some things. Hubby's back at work. I've had to take the kids into the supermarket. My son is completely dysregulated. My daughter is trying to stay regulated by asking me lots of questions, which is making me anxious, right? So it's like this constant turn. And I just got home and I was like, you know what? I'm out. I'm done. Like, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I can't do this. I'm running a bath. I'm running away, right? Because it's really hard, because if you're dysregulated, there's no way that you can show up for your kids. It's just, I've seen it happen too many times. So I just wanted to ask you, and I'm looking over here because I've got my questions on my screen, but, what do you believe is important regarding teaching mental health from a young age? And I think that we've touched on that a little bit, but what is the core thing that we should be teaching our kids from a young age so that they can ensure that they can regulate in the future?
I think the beauty of mental health is that it aligns really closely to science. And I think when we talk about science, we talk about biology. And I think they need to know how their body and their brain works. It's such an important part of the first step to even begin to have a look of how we can regulate ourselves. How does the body work? How does the brain work? Where are emotions coming from? Because a lot of people say that emotions come from the heart, which is such a beautiful romanticizing way of looking at emotions, but actually they come from the brain. So when we know they come from the brain, that means that we actually get to choose whether we want to listen to them or we don't. That means that we get to choose how we deal with the next steps of that. And what we want them to know is saying, hey, the human body is so magical, so beautiful. You're going to feel a duality in life and a ranging of emotions. And when you feel anger, that's totally fine. That's valid. That is part of how being a human is, how our body and brain works. And that's super cool. What's so important is the next steps. So where do you feel anger in the body? How does it feel to you? What can we do to change that process? Or even so, I think we're very quick to sort of squish all of these emotions. And I think a lot of parents, say, oh, how can I, stop the tantrums or the anger or the crying? That's not the aim. We're not here to squish. We're here to validate and guide the behavior. You're allowed to feel angry, but aggression is not okay.
Yeah.
You're allowed to feel sad, but running onto a road in tears, that's not okay. That's unsafe. So I think the first step with children is actually, and I work with children from starting from ages 3, and we start so simple with, where is your brain? And half of them don't know where their brain is in their body, what their brain looks like, how it feels. And I think the functionality, I think, is really important. It's definitely the first step that I like to take.
Yeah, I love that. And we don't know enough about our bodies, right? And we are in a situation where there's a lot of consumerism. I know there's a lot of parents who use the iPad as a regulation technique. Definitely will put my hand up. There was definitely times where I was using that for that. So like, no judgment here. Yeah, like I would be hard pressed to find a parent who hasn't in their entire parenting career not used the iPad at some stage to calm their child down. But too often I see parents, and as maybe not so much now, more so when, and I say we, I'm not going to presume your age, but I'm probably sure I'm older, but my time, stop crying, little boys don't cry, or, you'll be fine, dust yourself off and keep going, right? And there was that squishing of making sure that we don't want to see tears because God forbid, like, we actually feel an emotion, right? So absolutely, I think there are, and just something that springs to mind is having a list that, like, these are the safe things to do. You're feeling exactly what you just said, and these are the unsafe things, right? Like not running onto the road. As we know, a lot of autistic children, if they're, absconders, if they want to run, they're going to run, right, when they're upset, and sometimes not in a safe place. So having techniques to be able to do that is really good, which leads me to my segue around what are some practical strategies for both parents and educators to develop that emotional intelligence for children, whether that's in the classroom or outside the classroom?
Yeah, I think this is a beautiful question. And I think I get asked this all the time from parents and educators. And I think when they come to me with this question, they're almost looking for 5 top tips to fix everything.
Yeah.
And I have to sort of just slow those intentions down, that this isn't something that we fix. And mental health isn't just saying, okay, cool, I did this regulation strategy, tick box, we're all well for the rest of our lives. Well-being is a continuum that we constantly have to work on. So when I talk about strategies, I actually like to use maybe 3 or 4 words that I think are really powerful and that parents can think about when they're in those situations, or when the child is dysregulated and you need to sort of support them. And it's safety. Safety is so key. Everything comes back to safety, because when we feel safe, we can regulate ourselves. No one can regulate themselves in an overstimulated environment. And especially when you're neurodivergent, it's even more so difficult to regulate yourself in an environment that you feel really uncomfortable with. With people that you feel really uncomfortable with. So when you're setting up a space, whether it's their bedroom or you want to, go all out and create a calm corner, think about how to make it safe and how you can come across as a trusted adult. Another one is consistency. Again, this is sort of relating back to that quick fix mindset that we have, is that it is a constant reminders of what to do and how to do it. And there's a beautiful quote from Lael Stone, and it says, children cannot be what they cannot see. And I just think it's so fantastic, because how can you expect your child to regulate if you haven't shown them how? So a lot of the practice that we do in Mindful Mushkins program with the educators or with parents is, I say, make it a daily practice that every day you tell your child how you're feeling and what you're going to do about that feeling. Because if you do this consistently for 3 months, 6 months, a year, they're going to have such an awareness of different options or opportunities of how they can manage that emotions. So, for example, if I come down and my little boy Otis, and I might say, Mommy's feeling really angry today. I'm really frustrated. I had a bad night's sleep. I actually need to get rid of some energy. Do you want to have a dance party with me? I want to punch the air. And we show how to move that energy in a really fun way, But next time, he was really, really cute. We had an aha moment recently, and he said, I feel angry, I want to dance. And I think if you repeat that over and over and over, they say, oh, I feel this in my body, or I feel it in my stomach. What can I do? Oh, mum did a dance and got rid of that energy. And then we changed that emotion to something that, so I could concentrate or I could focus or whatever that looks like. So the consistency is key. Those little role modeling techniques, and it goes again lots with co-regulation. If they are dysregulated, you have to be an absolute strong tree and just like super calm. And I know, like you said, like we've all made slip ups, and it's really hard to always be calm. But super calm and just go in, and again, validate emotions, guide the behavior. It's okay to set boundaries. And actually what I would encourage, especially at a young age, is encourage frustration. And I know that sounds so strange, but if they don't learn now how to deal with frustration and struggle, they're going to have much bigger issues when they're older. So, for example, if Otis asks for an ice cream and I say, no, you can't have an ice cream, there's some in the fridge. And he knows there's some in the fridge, in the freezer. And he's pointing at it saying, but there's some in the freezer. And I'm like, but no. And then we have a tantrum and we kick and we scream and we have all of these big emotions. And I could just give him an ice cream, But he needs to learn how to deal with those emotions. And it's setting those boundaries of, you're not allowed an ice cream. I'm going to sit here and be with you. And it's totally fine to be angry. It's totally fine to be frustrated. When we hear no, it can be really, really upsetting. I'm going to be here for you. All your emotions are valid, but I'm holding that boundary.
Yeah. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, with that situation, would you have said, no, I'm not going to buy you the ice cream, but I'm going to give you the ice cream out of the freezer? Or you just would have been like, no, we're not having ice cream now?
Just no. I think the scariest thing as parents and educators is to set hard boundaries because we know how they're going to react. No one likes to listen to especially as a parent, no one likes to listen to their child be dysregulated or upset or angry. But it's something that we just have to do to help them in the long term to be able to deal with those emotions.
Yeah, definitely. Now, so for our family or any parents that are listening right now who are maybe in the early stages of their autism journey, can you just explain what co-regulating means? Because they may not know what that means. And they're just obviously, when you're in the beginning, you're learning a lot of different new words. It's like a whole new language. So if you can just share with the listeners what co-regulation means.
Yeah, absolutely. When we co-regulate, for example, if your child is in an emotional state, you have to really ground yourself and offer that support in a calm way. You're regulating with them. So basically, you come in a calm approach so that your child feels safe to regulate. You're teaching them how to regulate by almost role modeling it with them next to them.
Yes.
It's if your child, especially children and any young people really, it's so important that we start with co-regulation before we move on to self-regulation, because they don't know how to handle those emotions. So co-regulation is when we do it together. We're in this together. And I'm not going to leave you. You're in a safe environment. You can express yourself. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to be calm and just absorb all of that frustration from them.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a question that I get from a lot of parents, and I'm really interested to hear your answer, because my kids will definitely want closeness, they want touch, they almost want skin to skin. Like that's where it gets to the point where they just want to have their heads on my chest and just hear the heartbeat and just really, that's how they co-regulate. Whereas I know there are other autistic children that they don't want to be touched, right? Yeah. And so the common thread I hear from parents is, how do I co-regulate if my child doesn't want to be touched? If they don't want to be cuddled, how do I then co-regulate? Is it like what you were just saying with Otis? You're just going to lay on the floor with them or be in a sitting position around them just to make sure that they're safe? Or is there something else that maybe I'm missing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't have to be physical touch at all. A lot of the time, like, if, for example, with Otis, if he kicks and screams, obviously that's not an environment I want to put myself in, but I will be in the same room. And like you said, you have to make sure that your children are safe. And also, if they are verbal and they tell you to leave or to get out, I think it's really as parents or educators, we might want to leave that situation and give them their space. Personally, I would recommend to stay in that room. What they're doing is they're pushing boundaries and they're just dysregulated. So they're telling you to leave, but actually they don't want you to leave. Because when you leave a situation like that, you're saying, your emotions are too big for me to handle. I'm scared. And then you leave. When you stay in the same room, whether it doesn't matter how close you are, how far away, if you're in the same room, it says, hey, I'm not scared of your big feelings. I'm here for you no matter what, no matter how big you scream or you kick or you run, I'm here.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it's really important.
Because it can be, especially with some of these autistic kids where they're having quite large meltdowns, it can be very confronting. And as a parent, sometimes it can be aggression, and that's not, obviously that's not on the unsafe list, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So in the case that it is aggression, are you using your words? What are you doing in that situation?
Yeah, I think, look, it's really individual for every child. So it depends on how they prefer to regulate. And obviously, as parents or educators, you get to know your child a little bit more on an individual level, and you'll be able to sort of work out what works for them best. If they are aggressive and they want to release that energy in a certain way, we can just do that in a safe way. Make sure that there's cushions or, a boxing bag or whatever that might look like. Something where it's still okay if you want to release like that, that's totally fine. But we just do it in a safe way and we don't hurt other people.
Absolutely.
Like you said, I know it's quite scary when I box as well 5 times a week. So I'm used to getting punches thrown at my face, and it's always, it never gets not scary. But as long as
I know,
it's a safe way, that's the important thing.
An accomplished author. And you've written, 3 books that you have authored?
Yes, so we've got 7 across the board, but we just launched 3 to parents last year.
Yeah, right. So can you tell us a little bit about the books and what impact that could have on parents and educators?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the books are evidence-based. So we use Carol Riff's framework of well-being. So they have the 6 dimensions, which is sort of self-awareness, autonomy, purpose in life, environmental mastery. But to put it simply, the books are children love stories. I feel like that's across the board, no matter, like I said, across the world, across the cultures, languages, children love stories. It's such a beautiful way to convey a message. And not only do the stories have lovely, relatable characters, I wanted to make them strong character-based in case children don't have those role models at home or unable to give them everything that they want in terms of sort of that safety or allowing that trusting relationship, that they can find that in the characters. And to put it really simply, I mean, the books are just sort of, it's okay to make mistakes, like be 100% you, you're enough, be true to yourself, all of those beautiful values, I think, that are really missing in the system, to say, yeah, we make mistakes, but that's fine. These challenges, they're actually an invitation for an opportunity. What can we learn from this? How can we grow? And I think that those are the message that we need to teach kids. And I think we can do it, like I said, through those books, which is a really fun way that they can relate to.
Yeah, definitely. I love books. I think there are so many wonderful stories that we can share with our children in a way that makes it easy for them to digest, and in a space where they can ask questions. They can, follow up. What does this mean? How do we do, how does that look? And yeah, I do agree that having those strong characters is really important. So where can people purchase those books should they want to?
Yes, so you can purchase them from our website on www.mindfulmushkins.com. And they're through the resources and shop. There's also like loads of free resources on there, like affirmation cards. We're getting some meditations up next year. We're in this year, next month. That will all be free and accessible. So yeah, go and help yourself.
And can you share a moment through your teaching career where maybe a child's emotional health or emotional well-being really drastically changed because of the things that you have taught?
Yeah, absolutely. I think working with young people in mental health, before I share the story, have you ever heard it's a saying where the old men plant the seed of a tree they will never sit in the shade of.
Yes, I've heard that one before. Yep.
It's really beautiful. And I think working with in the mental health field with children is a little bit like that, because you plant all these seeds and you introduce these lessons and try and help them so much to build their emotional intelligence. But the real beauty of the tree is further down the line, when they're happy, capable adults making amazing choices and living their best life. So you almost miss out on that sort of full bloom of it. But there's so many different immediate behavior changes that you can see, choices that they make, whether it's in conflict with a friend, or whether, like we said, if they feel angry and they take themselves away from the situation and go and listen to some music, or the way that they show kindness and manners and they open doors. And it sounds so simple and human, but those are all the things that are well-being and make all the difference. I had a little boy in Spain. I taught in Spain, and it was a 3-year-old class, and they couldn't speak a word of English. It was an international school. So I went in teaching English. Taught everything, but in English. And there was this one little boy who wouldn't step in my classroom for about 3 months. He hid under the receptionist's desk, and he was so petrified to come into the classroom because A, I'm a stranger, B, I'm speaking a different language that he cannot understand, and C, it was his school for the first time. It was a huge change, and it's a lot going on internally for them. And I remember the head teacher was like, we just need to get those academics going, we need to get him learning, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I just can't focus on that right now. What he needs is a space where he can feel trusted and safe. So I asked the parents to come before school, and we did 10 minutes every day of just social emotional learning activities, working on mental health, understanding who he is, how he communicates. And probably after about 3 or 4 months after that, every day, he came into my classroom and he absolutely thrived, and he left speaking English, and he was academically just as good as the rest of them. And he was a beautiful little soul. But I think just 10 minutes a day, every day, consistently saying, hey, you can trust me. Hey, this is a safe environment. We can have fun. We can play. Like, this is okay. Made such a huge difference by the end of the year. So yeah, I think that was like my biggest. I'll never forget Javier.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that. Do you mind if I share a story with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
So I am never going to be that parent that will never apologize if I've done something wrong, right? Mate, I will definitely, again, put my hand up. I have made mistakes. Like, don't think that I am all this, getting it right all the time. I am definitely making mistakes, but I've made it a conscious effort, especially with my daughter, that if I make a mistake, I apologize for her. Like, I not apologize for her, apologize to her. I will say, look, I'm really sorry. I was really tired, or I was exhausted, or I had too much. I wasn't thinking properly because I had too much on my mind. Maybe I was thinking about therapy or homeschooling or something else. And so I will actively apologize and be like, I'm really sorry. She has taken that. And now when she gets upset, and she will have her meltdowns, tantrums, whatever you want to call it. And bear in mind, she's neurotypical. She will come back to me and she's like, look, I'm really sorry that I did that. I just was feeling really sad, or I just, I didn't know what else to do. So I was just yelling. And I was like, yes, but it looks like, because I know it's not the greatest way of saying it, but like monkey see, monkey do, right? If you are modeling that, they will pick up on it, right? Whether they're neurotypical or not. I'm a firm believer that my son will also pick up on that. But the reason why I haven't engaged with him as much is because we don't have that conversive language yet, that back and forth conversation. And so, but being able to, for her to recognize when come up and say, look, I'm really sorry, that was such a milestone for me, because I was like, yeah, this is what it is, right? Because this will serve her when she's in a relationship with her partner and she blows up at her partner for whatever reason, right? Like there's a multitude of reasons, right? Maybe bad traffic, whatever. She can then come up to him or her and be like, yeah, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to say that, or I was, really feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And I think that's a skill that will serve them through life, very much like regulation in general will serve them through the greater time of their life. So I think it's definitely, I think it's really important. I wish that they taught it more in schools. I wish that they taught it the way that they taught science and English and maths, as it just being another language or another subject.
I agree. I think that's so beautiful, because I also think saying sorry is really hard. I think as human beings, it's really hard for us to admit that we're wrong or that we've done something wrong, because we're really good at understanding our own intentions rather than our behaviors, where if something else happens, then we see only the behavior and not their intention. So I think the younger they start with practices like that, which is beautiful, by the way, the easier it's gonna be as an adult to say, oh, I'm actually genuinely really sorry, and apologizing for yourself. So I think that's such a beautiful practice.
Because how often do you hear children who become adults who turn around and say, well, my parents, were awful at this, or they didn't show up here, or they didn't do this, but they were doing the best that they could with the tools that they had. They definitely weren't perfect, 100%. I'm still yet to meet a perfect parent. I don't think that actually exists.
No.
However, we can do our best to be able to just make sure that we're showing up for ourselves. So, it's all that accountability stuff. There's so much to it. And like you would know, like there's so many layers to regulation. Like it's not just a one-stop shop.
No, and I think, like you said, I think being a human, if you're a parent or an educator and you feel overwhelmed, or perhaps you say the wrong thing, or you shout at your children, or you make a mistake, or whatever you do that you feel like, I wish I'd done this differently on reflection, I think it's beautiful. And I think it's so important to actually go back and say, I'm really sorry, this was wrong, or I should have done this, or I should have done this, because actually it humanizes us. And especially if you're an educator in a classroom, I think it's so old school to be sort of an I'm the class, all knowing, all wise, and you're the children, and I tell you what to do. And I think when we break those barriers down, especially using as emotion as a key indicator, it goes, oh, my teacher makes mistakes as well, and this is how she handles it. My mum makes mistakes as well. Oh, and that is a beautiful way to embrace mistakes as well. So we don't get to this sort of like perfectionist wheel for our children that are so scared to try anything new or do any of that. So I think, those practices as well, if you feel like you've messed up, and, I have had many days, I do this for a job and I still have days where I'm like, I can't. Or even if you're a parent and there's two of you, me and my partner have like a tap out. So if, and I adore him so much, my partner, but he has less patience than me. I've worked with children for a very long time, so I think I've developed a little bit more. He likes to tap out a lot. If it's too big, and that's fine, we don't speak, he just taps me, and it's like non-verbal, and I just swap and come in. And the agreement is sometimes I need to tap out, we just tap and we swap, because someone needs to be there to say this is okay, and sometimes we don't have the capacity to do so, and that's also okay. We have to look after ourselves as well.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that strategy. I'm totally implementing that at home. That's for sure. Okay, so we've got to the best part of the podcast is the 5 rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
Okay, yeah, I feel nervous.
And look, and it's nothing too hard, but just something that comes to mind that you think is relevant for the question. So what's the most surprising thing that you've learned from working with neurodivergent children?
The most surprising thing, do you know what? I think that I think people think there is such a big divide between neurotypical and neurodivergent. And actually, if we look at the child as an individual, every single child or adult has individual needs. We just sort of group them, and I think it's totally ridiculous. So I think that just realizing how beautiful they are in their own way, and seeing children as individuals rather than one way or the other. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, totally. Like, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I just think, learning about the individual is beautiful.
Yeah, and seeing the child as whole, right? Often with, when we're looking at neurodivergent children, especially autistic children, people are often looking at them as that they're broken. Mate, there's nothing broken about them. Okay, they are not broken. There is nothing wrong. They just got a different operating system, and we just need to get on board with that so that we can get the best out of them. Which is like any child, right? You put them in the right environment, they will flourish. Put them in the wrong environment, no one's flourishing. So,
and you can learn a lot from that. I think you can learn a lot from neurodivergent children. I think you can learn that actually it's about that. It's about understanding the child. And I think that's what you learn the most.
Yeah, I love that. What's the most valuable lesson that you've learned from a child that you worked with, other than obviously Javier?
Valuable lesson. Do you know what? I think it's just to be playful. I think children are so grounding and just bring you so much into the present moment and just invite you to play all of the time. And I think that we're constantly sort of rushing to a meeting or rushing to do this, or like, we've got to do this. The beauty about working with a child is that they go right here, right now, let's play. And I love that. I love that joy that it just snaps me out of that sort of hustle and bustle of everyday life to say, yeah, let's go and splash in some puddles. I would actually love that. And I think it's that slowing down piece that, I love the most.
Yeah, and society, I think I was listening to a podcast just before, and they were saying that, the stress and the busyness that mums are put under right now is just next level. So no wonder we're not in the present moment, because we're trying to juggle so many things. And then you put on top of that a neurodivergent child, therapy and doing all the extra bits that you probably wouldn't do with a neurotypical child. It can get a lot. So I love that. What's a sensory tool or strategy that you swear by?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many good ones. Do you know what? I love clay. So I like anything malleable just because the way that I am. So like Play-Doh or clay, something like that I'm quite tactile. I'm severely dyslexic. So visual and touch is also something that I like to do. So I would say definitely
Yeah,
clay.
I love that. Yes.
I can squish and squeeze. And,
my daughter's
play.
going through like a whole, what is it? It's like slime and, oh, cannot. She's like, touch it, mum, touch it. And I'm like, if you put that near me, I'm going to throw up. Like, do not let me. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to even look at it. I'm like, I am so tactile adverse. It's not even funny. What? And you just mentioned that. What's your favorite way to connect with a child is through fun and play. Would you say, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Being like really silly.
Yes. I think I need a few of those. I need extra fun and silliness. I'm getting better with homeschooling and increasing the fun and silliness.
And I think as well, sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I think as well, I think children's interests change, and like meeting them in their common ground is also something that I just think you have to be constantly on, like, okay, where can I meet you at? Where can we play? Where's that common ground that we both love?
Yes. And what's your favorite mantra or quote that you live by?
Ooh. Do you know what? I don't have a mantra, but what I really love to do, and it always makes me cry, I like to say what I'm really grateful for. I like to say what I'm grateful for a lot, and it really makes me sad, actually, which with like happy tears.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll even do it for my goals, like maybe something I haven't achieved, or where I want to take Otis or whatever that looks like. I say that I'm really grateful for maybe something I don't even have, and I just think it really grounds me, and it just puts me in the present moment of all the beautiful things that I have already.
And so you a big manifester?
Yes.
Big vision border, all that sort of stuff?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I've got my little book in my pocket that I keep everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, you have a little freebie to share with our listeners. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just some Mindful Mushkins affirmation cards. So I've just put those on the website, which are near the books. But you can download these. These are printable ones. They're absolutely beautiful, but also really good practice if you wanted to sort of put a mirror in your child's room, and you can pick maybe one a week and you just say it with them in the mirror, or they can say it in the mirror, or you can put them upside down and you can play little games with them, but they're really just good, easy, simple cards that you can access for free.
Yeah, great. I will pop the link once we finish the live so that everyone can have access to that. Thank you so much, Isabelle. I've so thoroughly enjoyed our chat today. Thank you for coming on. Regulation is definitely a hot topic, but it's also a topic that many parents, especially coming into autism, don't necessarily know what that means. So thank you for sharing that. And if people want to find you on socials, where do they go?
At Mindful Mushkins on Instagram.
Yes. Okay, perfectly. Thank you. Thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.